How many times have you dedicated yourself to something hoping for a reward that never came? This relentless desire to see our efforts result in a specific achievement often leads to frustration. We put so much energy into the outcome that we forget something essential: the value of the journey and the true purpose behind each action. When our motivation relies solely on what we'll gain, whether recognition, success, or validation, we place the key to our happiness in something external, and often beyond our control. Acting with purpose, on the other hand, is an act of liberation. When you connect with the true reason behind what you're doing, the experience itself takes on new meaning. Your dedication becomes more authentic, less tied to rewards or approval. Imagine working on a project, developing a skill, or helping someone without expecting anything in return. This mindset not only eases the weight of expectation, but also brings a deeper, more lasting sense of fulfillment, as it arises from your inner purpose rather than from a specific outcome. If this idea resonates with you and you want to find peace and satisfaction in the present, we invite you to subscribe to our channel. Our goal is to help awaken the best in you. Acting with this approach allows you to experience the process with ease. Small victories, lessons, and even challenges become valuable parts of the journey. Purpose keeps your motivation alive, even when the result isn't what you expected. This doesn't mean letting go of the desire for success, but understanding that true satisfaction doesn't come from the destination, but from the intention with which we travel the path. You begin to recognize that often the growth and experiences gained along the way are the real rewards. Detaching from results also opens the door to exploring new paths. Without the pressure to reach a specific end, you feel freer to experiment and innovate, trusting that each step has its own value. The focus shifts to continuous evolution and the authentic expression of who you are. In this way, instead of being bound to results and achievements, you learn to value purpose in each action, finding peace and satisfaction in simply doing your best, regardless of the final outcome. When we cling to outcomes, we are, in fact, trying to control the future, a future that always remains uncertain. This desire to control and predict the outcome of each action often traps us in a spiral of anxiety. We become so preoccupied with what might go wrong or what should happen that we fail to live in the present moment fully. It's as if each step is taken with the weight of the outcome, preventing us from experiencing the lightness and joy of the journey itself. This fixation on results makes each action a burden, as the fear of failing or not being good enough takes center stage. Minor deviations, which are a natural part of any process, are seen as failures, fueling a cycle of self-criticism and frustration. By focusing too much on the outcome, we lose sight of the learning and growth that come from each obstacle and become prisoners of a limited and rigid view. This attachment closes us off to possibilities and often to unexpected paths that could lead to even richer discoveries. Letting go of the outcome means opening up to the full experience, embracing uncertainty as part of the process. Instead of viewing uncertainty as an enemy, you can see it as an opportunity for growth, a chance to develop skills that extend beyond simply achieving a goal. When we allow ourselves to live each stage without the pressure of securing a specific outcome, we become more resilient and adaptable. After all, it is this ability to adapt that prepares us to handle any result, whether expected or not. By welcoming the present moment, you discover that true peace lies in freeing yourself from the expectations you've created for the future. Anxiety begins to give way to genuine trust in the process and, more importantly, in yourself. By allowing each action to have its value, regardless of the outcome, you feel lighter and more present, living each moment as it is, without the burden of needing to control everything. After embracing uncertainty and letting go of control, the next step is to develop a deep trust in what cannot be controlled. This trust brings serenity as we begin to understand that there is a natural flow to events and not everything is in our hands. This acceptance teaches us to cooperate with life rather than fight against it. Often, we insist on things happening exactly as we envision, but by accepting that we do not always have the power to shape the future, we learn to respect the rhythm and direction that events take. This trust is not passive. It requires the courage to surrender to what life presents. Accepting the unpredictable and trusting in the process helps us see that even unexpected outcomes have a purpose. We may not immediately understand the why of things, but over time, we realize that each experience teaches us something essential. When we stop demanding that everything goes according to plan, we make room for learning and for developing a resilience that sustains us in challenging times. This surrender also allows us to live more lightly and with less frustration. When we set aside the need for control, we create space for life to surprise us. By trusting that each situation has intrinsic value, we become more present and grateful. We discover that detachment is not resignation, but a way of living with authenticity and openness. Thus, we find strength not in the illusion that we can control the outcome, but in the certainty that whatever the outcome may be, we will know how to handle it. By acting with confidence in the flow of life, we recognize that serenity is born from this deep acceptance. We are not giving up on our dreams or goals. We are simply setting aside the burden of rigid expectations and allowing the journey to unfold naturally. This state of trust roots us in the present and provides the peace necessary to appreciate each stage, knowing that everything that happens is part of a greater path. The practice of detachment requires consistency and small daily steps. It begins in the most common situations, when planning something and accepting that unforeseen events may happen, or when offering help without expecting recognition in return. This daily practice helps us strengthen acceptance and cultivate a more open mind that deals better with uncertainties. Simple actions like taking a deep breath when we feel anxiety creeping in help us return to the present moment and remember that not everything needs to be under our control. Each time we let go of expectations about the outcome of an action, we take a step toward a state of emotional freedom. As we get accustomed to this practice, we realize that our worth is not tied to success or validation from others. This detachment allows us to act according to our true essence, without the need to prove anything to anyone. And this internal freedom, which arises when we detach, brings us a sense of peace and autonomy. Cultivating detachment also means making room for gratitude. When we are less focused on what should be, we begin to notice what is. Small moments and gestures become valuable, and we start to see beauty in simple, everyday things. The practice of detachment invites us to appreciate what we have, even if it doesn't fit the ideal we projected. This daily gratitude strengthens us and fills us with contentment, making each experience, whether good or challenging, a significant part of our journey. Every day we practice detachment, our mind becomes more flexible and open to new possibilities. We start to realize that there are many ways to live, achieve happiness, and grow. Thus, the practice of detachment leads us on a journey of self-discovery, where each experience becomes an opportunity for learning. It is by releasing the weight of expectations that we find the lightness to move forward, learning to flow with life in all its forms and recognizing the value of every moment. As we cultivate detachment, we realize that it leads us down a path of growth and wisdom. By letting go of rigid expectations about what we should achieve, we open up space for a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Every experience, especially those that do not go as planned, brings lessons that go beyond a simple outcome. We learn to see each situation as a teacher, offering opportunities for self-knowledge and inner expansion. This growth manifests primarily in our resilience. Detachment from outcomes teaches us to accept changes more easily and to adapt to challenges without losing our internal balance. When we are not fixated on a single form of success, we become capable of recognizing new alternatives and seeing obstacles as a natural part of the journey. Instead of being overwhelmed, we begin to ask what the situation can teach us and how we can grow from it. The wisdom that arises from detachment also makes us more compassionate towards ourselves and others. When we understand that each person is dealing with their own expectations and challenges, we become less critical and more understanding. By detaching from judgments, comparisons, and perfectionist demands, we develop a more empathetic and realistic view of life. This compassion strengthens us as we begin to act with kindness and patience, recognizing that everyone is in constant learning and evolution. In the end, detachment from outcomes leads us to profound wisdom, that the value of life is not in achieving specific goals, but in fully living each experience it offers us. By valuing the journey and not just the destination, we find meaning and contentment at every stage. This understanding teaches us to see life as a continuous process of growth, where each action, each mistake, and each victory is part of a whole that enriches and makes us wiser. By detaching from outcomes and learning to value each step, we discover that peace and satisfaction truly lie in the actions themselves. When we act with intention and presence, the reward emerges from the act of doing itself. Thus, we begin to realize the true fulfillment is not found in the final achievement, but in the fullness of living each moment with attention and dedication. This understanding brings us joy that does not depend on external factors, but springs from within, from our connection with what we do and the purpose that drives us. This shift in perspective frees us from the constant cycle of always wanting something more. As we find contentment in the present, we start living with a sense of gratitude for what is within our reach, without the anguish of striving for something distant. By focusing on the quality of our actions and the intentions that guide us, we become less susceptible to the stress and disappointments that arise when we are fixated on results. The peace we often seek is right beside us, waiting for us to look to the present. Finding satisfaction in our actions helps us build a solid foundation of self-confidence, as we do not depend on external validation to find value in what we do. By giving our best at each step, we stay true to ourselves and our purpose, and this brings a sense of pride and self-respect that cannot be shaken by outcomes. We learn to recognize the merit of our choices and our effort, knowing that our worth lies not in the results, but in the authenticity with which we live. Thus, living in the present and detaching from outcomes leads us to a more fulfilling and meaningful life experience, where each moment is valued. If you've made it this far, It means you're ready to take the first steps toward detachment and connection with the now. Subscribe to the channel and leave your thoughts or experiences in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Peace and light to you.